where we sort out the good guys from the bad guys and try to help you make sense of the law. We'll give you the latest on the big cases and highlight the weird ones as well. We'll hear from the defenders, the enforcers, and maybe even a few lawbreakers. Regardless, you'll come away knowing more than when you started. This is Crime Time Central Legal Talk.
Hey guys, I'm David Ridings with Crime Time Central. Live on Stand Against Dark Blue Facebook and YouTube. Several platforms at the same time because we conserve energy around here. We love our planet. Anyway, so man, Freemont PD all of a sudden in the news quite a bit with homicide. Police shootings. And the most recent one, we have the body cam footage for. We are still awaiting the body cam footage in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. Those of you that watch this channel know that we've been standing by waiting for a FOIA request for the body cam video out of North Carolina. The sheriff there says they're going to release it when the district attorney says they can release it. The family says they have seen a private viewing and they call it an execution. It concerns me in this day and age with technology as we have it that they've not released this video yet. Every police department that I know that has a police shooting that may be controversial gets on the ball and releases the footage immediately, as soon as they can. I mean, usually that's going to take at least 24 hours, but it should not take 4 days. It should not take 5 days. I think this actually happened 5 days ago in Elizabeth City. 3 police officers have resigned, allegedly not related to the shooting. I don't believe that at all. I think something is amiss. And I think we're going to see we don't make any prejudgments here until we see the evidence. Sometimes we don't make a call after seeing the body cam footage until we know the backstory, because there's always a backstory. This footage is that we're about to show from Fremont is another sensitive viewer discretion advised type video. But in regard to Elizabeth City, North Carolina, come on, guys, release the video. It is what it is. You're not going to change it. You're not going to make it better by waiting 2 weeks or a month or 6. It's going to make it worse. I mean, you're going to have riots and protests in the streets, and you already are. And so, I mean, maybe they're trying to beef up the police to be ready for riots in the street, because when they release the video, they know there's going to be chaos in the streets. I don't know. Why else would you not release the video if it's a justified shooting? Release it. As a former police officer and a defense attorney, if the facts are on your side, argue the facts. If the law's on your side, argue the law. And if, as my law professor said, if neither is on your side, just bang on the table and object a lot. So if the facts are on your side, release the video. Show us some transparency here. I mean, really seriously, it's been long enough. Let's take a look at this body cam footage out of Fremont. So a pretty descriptive story by the police chief here in Fremont. And I'm not going to play the whole thing. I watch these news reports and multiple body cam videos, so you don't have to. And I bring you the ones that I think are relevant and important for you to see. But she does do a good job. And so I thought I would include here the little drawing
When Mosley exited the west side
So
door,
Mosley is the defendant here, or the suspect. Sorry, not the defendant. He's actually dead now. He's the suspect that they were looking for. He had multiple warrants against him. The early part of this video shows him going to the door and of this hotel and looking around. And basically, he spots the police. Let me back up to that. Let's see. We're at 212 here. Let's see. Well, you know what? It may be beyond there. So let's just play it from here. So Mosley steps out. He sees the police, and he's going to run.
Hyatt Place Hotel. We believe
north.
he spotted our detectives sitting outside the door in an unmarked vehicle because he immediately began to run in a northbound direction through the parking lot.
The reason I'm playing this is that it will help you when you watch the body cam to know where everybody is, and it'll help you to understand what you're seeing. So that's why I'm showing this part.
Stopping the suspect from fleeing. As Mosley ran northbound toward the northern parking lot of the Hyatt Place Hotel, Detective Gepp advised he could see what appeared to be a gun in Mosley's right hand. The police canine was able to quickly catch up to Mosley and latch onto Mosley's arm, which resulted in Mosley falling to the ground. As this was occurring, Detective Gepp exited his vehicle and could see that Mosley had a silver firearm in his.
Now, for those of you that don't know and don't understand policing, a police canine dog is a less than lethal use of force. It is, it's not deadly force. It's less than lethal, which means if somebody's got a gun in this situation and you release the dog to go after him, the dog has a very great risk of being killed. And they treat the dog like an officer. He is an officer. And you don't want your dog killed, but certainly dogs are, I say this, and the canine officer probably wouldn't agree, but they're less important than humans. And that's why we have dogs for less than lethal force. So they've released this dog to chase after this guy who clearly has a gun.
Right hand. After falling to the ground, Mosley began to punch the police canine multiple times and pointed the gun at the dog's head. Detective Harvey ran up to assist with the apprehension of Mosley when he also saw the silver firearm in Mosley's right hand. Detective Harvey and Detective Gepp began yelling, "Gun," to alert the other officers to the fact Mosley had a gun in his hand, as other officers were also arriving on scene.
Now, this is a great video because it's going to show you multiple body cam views, and you're going to get a really good view of what happened.
In an effort to de-escalate and create distance, detectives who were initially moving toward Mosley and the canine in an effort to take him into custody began backing up and moving to cover behind their cars. They shouted several times to put the gun down. During the next few seconds, while Mosley was fighting with the canine, Mosley pointed the silver firearm twice at detectives who were in close proximity. During this time, Detective Gepp, fearing the suspect would shoot at him or other officers, fired his department-issued firearm at Mosley. Simultaneously, Detective Harvey also saw Mosley point the firearm toward him and toward other officers. He, too, fired his department-issued firearm at Mosley.
Okay. So this is what I was talking about earlier. I thought it was earlier in the tape. This is the victim, or the suspect, the victim now. And he's looking, and it looks like he's on the phone talking to somebody, but he's clearly spotted the police here. He's got something in his hands, some kind of bag in his hands. And as soon as he gets outside, he starts running. And then this is an undercover detective who was inside the lobby. So the police were busted and he saw them immediately. That's the canine officer releasing the dog and two other detectives getting out of that van. And, they had their blue lights and siren on, or not the siren, but maybe they had the siren. It says siren activated. And there's the dog. Can't run. You can't get away from the dog. When I was a police officer in Nashville, we were chasing a rape suspect who jumped out of a third-story apartment building. Literally, third story, jumps out of the window, bounced a couple of times, rolled, and took off running. I've never seen any human jump from that far and not splat. But when the canine started chasing him, he jumped off a cliff. He lived, but so this is the dog. This is clearly the dog attacking the suspect. And here's where most of the bullets come from, detective number 2. And then Detective Gepp, I think, fires 2 shots, and the other detective fired 7. So you're going to see multiple views.
Show me your fucking hands!
He keeps pointing the gun, but he doesn't shoot. And I think he's distracted by the dog.
Shot fired at highest place.
Now, you know, you know me. I'm one to shine a light on what I think is right and what I think is wrong. I don't fault the officers for firing here, especially right there. He's clearly pointing the gun at them. But let's count these shots and let's watch the suspect as the shots are being fired. I also know that some police will fire because they hear another police officer fire. That's absolutely a proven statistic. There are many police shootings where one cop doesn't see what the other cop sees, but because he's shooting, this guy will shoot. So that happens all the time. I'm not saying it happened here. I don't know. I mean, one of the officers fired twice and the other officer fired 7 times. But here's the slow-mo. So that's when they fire, when he pointed the second time. Let's back that up and show you this again.
Your fucking hands!
Sorry about the language. This is what I wanted to point out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right there. He's no longer a threat. He's rolled over and he's not pointing. And they fire at least 4 more times, maybe 5. I think the first several shots, first 3 shots were effective. I don't think that 9 shots should have been fired. But I've also been in a situation like that. I've been in a police shooting, and I know adrenaline is a huge factor. And sometimes you just really get tunnel vision, and when you start shooting, you don't stop shooting until you know the threat is terminated. And so I can't argue with them shooting him here. But, you know, as a Monday morning critic, when you look at this, good Lord, I didn't even have that showing. I'm sorry about that. As a Monday morning critic here, when you're showing this body cam footage and you're able to look at it in the comfort of your own home, then of course, you know, you can criticize the number of times they shoot. This is what I'm talking about. First shot. Okay, 2 shots have been fired right here. Now he's tucking. 4, 5. And then now he's clearly rolled over and he's not a threat. 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 more shots. Total of 9 shots together. So the first 4 shots, in my opinion, were all that were needed. Now, that is another thing the officer just said. I don't know if you heard it because I'm talking over it. He said, shots fired, start medical code 3. That's what you're supposed to do. When you're a cop and you shoot somebody, immediately, in the same breath you're saying, shots fired, suspect down, start me an ambulance. Call for the ambulance immediately. Don't wait. And they did a good job of that here. That should be, it is trained, but cops sometimes forget that part in the heat of the moment. So you're going to see another view here in a second of the other body cam from one of the other officers. And really, they're focusing here on the number of times he's pointing that gun at the police. That's hard to. It's hard to sit there and let somebody point a gun at you and not shoot.
Gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
So Gep is the one that fires 7 times.
Chris, back up! Chris, get back to me. Come back to me.
I think out of the 7 or the 9 times, he was hit 4. This is one of the detectives out of the van.
He ran northbound.
Hey, gun! Drop the fucking gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
Hey, we got shots fired.
Drop the gun!
Dogs on bite. Start 1141 code 3.
And I think this one's going to be the K9. Yeah, you're going to see the K9 officer. You're going to see the K9 officer do something here in a second. I'll explain what it is. So when the dog is attacking somebody, these officers don't want to shoot the dog. And so for them to attempt these shots when the dog is right in their line of fire means that they were afraid for their life or for the life of another officer because this guy kept pointing the gun at them. And so when they're shooting, I'm shocked they didn't hit this dog. Really shocked. So you see what his hand's doing right here. This K9 officer has reached up to his body cam area. That right there. He's trying to call the dog back. He has an e-collar. The e-collar has got a signal on it that when he hits the signal, it's supposed to give an alert to the dog and call the dog off. It was not working in this instance. And they said that e-collar was actually defective or not working for some reason. And they've ordered new ones and they're doing retraining for that issue right there alone. So that's why the dog never let up. The dog will keep chewing and biting and chewing and biting until he's told by his handler enough. And, you know, in this case, the electronic thing wasn't working. So here's one of the last views we'll watch. There's no audio on these. So you can see there's 5 or 6 officers out here. All of them are in danger when he's waving that gun around. And, you know, people are going to criticize them and say, he never fired a shot. Why did you shoot at him? You're just...
After Mosley was hit with the officer's rounds, he stopped moving.
You know, you're just ill-informed. You might have good intentions, but, you know, good intentions when you're ill-informed doesn't help. That's like LeBron James. He had good intentions for posting the tweet that he did the other day. He's just ill-informed about policing. So when a suspect points the gun at you, it takes a millisecond, like 0.1 of a second for him to fire a round. And you can't wait for him to shoot first. So all of you people that think they should have let him shoot before they shoot him, you've never stared at the business end of a firearm. And that, you know, in my short, I mean, 10 years is not short necessarily, but it's short for some police officers. When I was a police officer in Nashville, I had one episode where there was a carjacking. We happened up on it. We didn't know what we were walking up on until the guy took off running, and then we were able to interview the suspect later. We thought it was some kind of prostitution thing because the guy was in the passenger door was open and there was somebody laying down on the seat and somebody on top of that person. We thought we'd interrupted something. And we did. We interrupted what was a carjacking, and the guy that was on the outside leaning in had a gun. And so when we approached him, he took off running, and I was just a few feet behind him and in a foot chase. It was about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night on Gallatin Road in East Nashville. And we ran. It was across the street from Crystal, and the Crystal restaurant, Crystal Burger Place would have, I'm not kidding and not exaggerating, 500 people in the parking lot, just hanging out, playing music. You know, you couldn't even drive your car in the Crystal parking lot because of the number of people that were standing in the parking lot. And it was just a big party there every weekend. And so we're running through this crowd, literally pushing people out of the way. And this guy keeps turning and shaking his gun. I think it was jammed and he couldn't fire, but he was trying to shoot me. And I was right behind him. I couldn't shoot because I was afraid the bullet would go through him and hit somebody else. There was just too many people crowded in. Not that I couldn't have hit him. I mean, I was like literally maybe six to 8 feet behind this guy as we're running through this crowd. But it's really very hard for somebody to point a gun at you and you not fire. And so this guy that they were chasing didn't want to go to jail. He may have been trying to commit suicide by cop, which, you know, the quickest way to commit suicide by cop, point a gun at him. Whether you intend to shoot them or not, if you're pointing this gun at police officers, one of them or two, in this case, are going to shoot you multiple times. So that's what happens when you point a gun at a police officer, folks. It's really not that hard. And you can't criticize these cops. You might criticize them for the number of times they shot. I mean, I think the guy was only hit 4 times, so the rest of the shots might have missed anyway. The first 3 or 4 shots were effective to stop the threat, but they all happened so quickly. Again, I'm not criticizing, but if you're going to criticize anything, that's what you would say. I haven't heard the politicians and BLM come out in support of this guy. And usually they won't when it's a clear-cut case like this. The exception to that is Ma'Khia Bryant. And you still hear people calling that cop a racist and calling for justice for Ma'Khia. And that's, in my opinion, just a stupid position to try to maintain. It's a hill you can't take. She was about to stab some girl in the neck, and if that girl in the pink, and everybody that's seen that video knows what I mean by the girl in the pink, if the girl in the pink was your daughter or your wife or your sister, you would be overjoyed with this police officer for saving her life. So I don't get it. I don't get why you think you can criticize him for taking the life of a black person simply because they are black. She had a knife and she was about to kill somebody. So, and 16 years old or not doesn't matter, in my opinion. Those instances happen. Young people are quite capable of killing you. I say everybody. If you watch the news at all, you've seen the 2 girls that 13-year-old, one of them's 13-year-old girl and the other is, I believe, 15, that carjacked that poor man in New York who was the Uber driver. And he was trying to get back in his car and was reaching through the window, and they took off, and they hit the side of the wall and crushed him. They flipped the car over and rolled on him, and he died. And these 2 young teenagers jump out of the car, and one of them goes, "Oh my gosh, my phone's in the car." Not at all concerned about the dead man laying there on the sidewalk that they just killed. So if you don't think that young people can kill you, well, again, you're just ill-informed. Sorry. I mean, we just call it like we see it here at Stand Against Dark Blue. Which, by the way, go to our website, standagainstdarkblue.com or .org. And let me do that real quick. share that with you. So this is our website, and we have 2 pledges there. And if you want to support the police in an effort to police the police, you want to support good cops against the bad cops, that's what we do here. Sign our citizen pledge or our officer pledge. If you're a citizen, you click right here, and it will take you to another screen. It actually opens in a different window, and you can read the pledge. It's very easy to understand. It's a 1-page, basically citizen pledge to support good cops. And basically it says, I admit that not every cop's a bad cop. There are a genuinely good number of police officers who are good, and I support them. However, there are some bad cops, and I stand against those and stand with the good cops in an effort to expose the bad cops. And we call the bad cops in this organization dark blue. Dark blue just doesn't mean they wear dark blue. Lots of cops wear dark blue. Dark blue is not all blue. And so we stand with the good cops against the bad cops. And dark blue just signifies the cops that never needed to be cops that have racial issues, racism issues, power and aggression issues. They're bullies. Some of them are. Not all cops are bullies, but there are some cops that are bullies. And we want to expose them and get them out of law enforcement, because we want to police law enforcement. We want the police to be filled with good men and women, and you want good candidates for police officers, which I've said this before, you're not going to get if you defund the police. When you start defunding the police and taking finances away from the police, you're taking away from training, you're taking away from resources for recruitment, and you're going to get the bullies that will apply. You're going to get the people who can't get a job anywhere else. And honestly, we're almost there. I mean, I don't know of anybody that's got any sense that wants to be a police officer today. Now, there are some that's their, like me, when I was growing up, it's my lifelong dream and ambition to become a police officer. That was something I'd always wanted to do since I was a kid. And I dreamed of it. And so when I became a police officer, I was shocked they paid me for it. Happy they did, but would have done it for free. And there are still those out there that would do it for free and that will apply. And we will still get some good candidates, but you're going to get fewer good candidates if you defund and you take away resources from the police department. So that's my position. If you're retired, active, or former police officer, you can click this button right here and it will take you to the police officer pledge. The police officer pledge says, I admit that there's a problem in the police department today. Not all cops are bad, but some of them have these issues. And it also goes on to say that there's a blue code of silence. And I admit that blue code of silence is there. And the blue code of silence acts as a protection for people in the department that may do wrong. The blue code of silence is you don't tell against a brother or sister police officer no matter what. That needs to be over. That needs to end. And we need to eradicate and denounce the blue code of silence. If you're a police officer and you sign this pledge, you're a very brave man or woman. So you're saying basically you're going to denounce the blue code of silence. You're going to stand against the darkness in your department. You're going to expose it when you see it. And if you see a police officer violating the civil rights of another person or citizen, you're going to take immediate action. Period. That's going to put your job on the line like it did Officer Javier Escueda up in Illinois, who basically exposed a police video that had been buried, and he violated some departmental policies in doing that. He felt passionate about exposing this video because it showed some wrongdoing, in his opinion, of some other officers. And we've got that highlighted at the top of our Facebook page. You can go look at that video and make your own conclusion. I think he was right to release it. And I applaud him for doing that because he lost his job over it. But if we have our way, that's the way all police officers will act and react in the days and months and years to come. We want to teach them how to denounce this blue code of silence, teach them how to police themselves, teach them how to take action against another fellow police officer who's in the course and scope of doing his job, but is violating the civil and human rights of another person. Because there's a way to do that, but you got to train it. You're not born with that. You have to teach somebody how to do that, especially young police officers that come out and they're looking up to the veteran police officers. They don't want to get in trouble. They want to make it through their probationary period so they can stay a police officer, and they don't want to rock the boat. But you've got to give them a way that they can police themselves. Not going to be easy, not saying it's easy, but it's what we stand for here. And we just ask you to join us. You can sign our pledge. It doesn't cost a thing to do that. Of course, if you want to donate, it's a 501c3, and your donation is tax deductible. And we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you just in our database as somebody that we can contact and say, hey, we're going to have a rally over here, and we want this many thousands of people to show up. And you can get you a T-shirt that says, I still have breath, and I'm not going to waste it. We have those T-shirts on sale on our website as well. You just go to the shop page there, and you'll see those. Listen, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with somebody, and invite them to like this page and join the fun. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks so much. Good night.